So you were teaching before Common Core came along, and you're seeing a big difference in teaching and in your students. You were telling me earlier about a conversation that you were having with a parent yesterday. What are parents saying to you?
I have parents come in, they're very concerned about their children. They were once happy to go to school, even last year. They're just losing that passion for learning. They're worried about their test grades in kindergarten and first grade. They're crying constantly. Anytime a test comes up, they're scared.
When you were teaching before Common Core, was it normal to have first graders crying and so scared of tests and that kind of
thing? No, they loved school. School was their getaway. They didn't want to go home. They wanted to come to school on Saturdays. They were excited to learn.
One of the things too you were talking about was, as a teacher, your creativity is really changing.
I feel like it is. It's a constant struggle between what you're expected to do to get the data that they need, the test results they need, versus what I know as a teacher is good for my children, just from my years of experience and my professional opinion. My husband put it to me this week in a way that really hit home. He said, it seems to me like you feel like an artist who's been placed on an assembly line, and those children are products going across that line. And I have to agree with him. Mm-hmm. We get to a point where we feel like we're becoming cookie cutter teachers. Mm-hmm. Our children are cookie cutter children, and we're all about quality control.
Do you feel like you have the freedom to speak out to your administrators or really be public about how you feel about it?
I do not feel at this time that I could speak out without being reprimanded and possibly facing job loss.
Tell me a little bit about Compass, which is a new curriculum.
Here in Alabama? More of a learning database, instructional tool for us to put into the hands of our students on iPads or computers to help target certain standard-based skills where they're lacking. Eventually, it will be all students, as we're told, 60 to 90 minutes a week in reading language arts and 60, 90 minutes a week in math. I'm very concerned about the security of the students' information and also the data mining and tracking that's going to go on from kindergarten all the way through, I guess, their senior year in school.
It really blows my mind that the research is very clear with young children, putting them in front of electronic devices, in front of computers, TVs. It really dulls their education, it dulls their brains, their brain development slows down. And you were mentioning that now with some possibly learning disabled kids, they're seeing that there may be some learning disabled tendencies coming up in these kids, and so what they're doing is putting them in front of screens.
Exactly. That is the goal right now with Compass Learning, is to put it into the hands of our students who are on response to instruction, which is they're very high risk students, so they believe that this is going to give the students another way to learn besides teacher intervention. Now it will be this program providing their intervention.
You're a parent and you have young children, so you can sort of relate both as a teacher and as a parent. Is there a message that you would want to give parents in dealing with Common Core?
Yes. Always ask why. Why is my child doing this? What is the purpose in it? Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't just assume that your child's teacher is going along with it because they want to. I know probably at least 30% of each faculty at each school is probably very aware of what's going on and can't speak out. Go look for opportunities on social media, places to get connected. Approach it with an unbiased approach. Look at both sides. Is it good? Is it bad? Decide for yourself. You don't have to be an educator to know it's not right.
When it first came out, when Common Core was first put in Alabama, and you really noticed, you were beginning to deal with it, were you excited about it? I mean, how did you feel about it?
I was confused because I had heard a couple of years before that there were new standards coming, and we had just been addressing the standards that Alabama had just released, a couple of years before that. And one of the administrators in my school said, yes, we are going to have new standards, but we don't want to overwhelm the teachers with that right now, so we're not really going to talk about it. because we have some new curriculum programs coming down and we just need to focus on that. So of course, me being the person who asks why, I go home and I start researching it. And I don't know why no teachers were informed this was happening. I could not find a teacher who had participated in writing that curriculum. So in my mind, a red flag had already come up. But I did go along with it. Of course, as a teacher, we want what's best for our students, and that's what we are told. This is what's best for the students. This is new, and this is better. And we want everybody to be on board and to be positive. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. There's going to be many changes. And yes, there are.
You teach elementary school, and how have the test scores changed from, say, last year or the year before to this year? What are you seeing?
In a local level in my classroom, my students' grades are a lot lower than they have been in the past. I'm trying to teach what I'm told to fidelity at this point. I'm finding you can't stray from that and have a good end product according to their standards. As a school, looking at our data, I'm concerned why we're excited that 50 and 60% of our kids are ready for high school, according to ACT Aspire, when I know in my classes in college and through math, and most people know this, a bell curve is usually a standard bell curve. We want people who are almost at 100%. We're not seeing that, but we're being told as teachers, oh, it's wonderful, it's great, look how good they're doing. And we know it's a little low, but it's going to get better.
So what you're seeing on paper, the paper scores are lower. What are you seeing in your students? Is it just because the tests are different, so their scores are low, or are they learning more now that they have Common Core, or what are you seeing there?
They are learning a lot less. I can tell you from experience. I sit around with some of my teachers. We discuss this in our meetings behind closed doors, not with administrators on my grade level. And we're very concerned that these students are nowhere near where they've been in years past. And we feel as teachers like failures that, whoa, we are not doing what's right for our kids. So we're torn between what our administrators and our government wants us to do and what we know we should be doing.
Okay, that's so enlightening. And when you say the kids aren't as far as they used to be, why is that? What are you doing, or what are you being made to do that's making them not be able to learn as much?
The curriculum has changed, of course, with the standards. They're developmentally inappropriate. I know we hear this over and over again, but coming from a teacher, it is true.
So they're not
You're pushing for what we are pushing at them, and they're held accountable to test every week from us. We're told to give weekly. They need to be uniform across our district. Our district also has tests for every unit at the end of every English, reading, English language arts unit, and math unit that we give. Sometimes they're 6 or 7 pages long, and we have to bubble them in after the tests, and they go into a Scantron, and our district collects the data starting in kindergarten. And so we're given a 10-page report sometimes of that data just from that unit, and it points out which standards we should have taught better based on one test.
What do you do with those kids who aren't really cutting it? I mean, they're really behind. Do they just get left behind? I mean, you sort of have to push them all through together. So are you able to individualize for the students as much as you were before?
Yes and no. I still work with those students, but I just had a parent conference with a child whose dad is a lawyer. And they're very, about pushing their child on. They work with him at home. He was just not developmentally ready for what was to come this year. And then what we're expecting is definitely not developmentally appropriate. And I was very concerned because he is in constant tears. He seems depressed at school. He's not happy. And they were very, very upset that this was going on, and we're like, should we just pull him out of school at this point in time and start over again? And it was just very disheartening to me to, even have to call up a parent and say, hey, we've got a problem here. Your child is in tears every Friday, all throughout the day. It's just too much too soon. And I am all for rigor. I am all for a challenge and enrichment. this is not the challenge and enrichment our children need.
If you could make a change, if you were the president or the governor or the leader of our Board of Education, as a teacher, maybe just even in your classroom, if you had the complete freedom to do what you want, what would you do?
Oh, wow. I would go back to what I learned is developmentally appropriate for children. I would go back to the good old glory days, as I refer to them, when I first started teaching, and I had the freedom to do that, and my students flourished. They're doing wonderful even now. I would write some of my own lessons again, and really, I would get rid of our textbooks that we have now and totally.
Would you test as much?
No, ma'am. My test would be more of a observational type testing, pencil and paper in kindergarten and first grade. Not necessary all the time.
Have you seen, or do you know personally of parents who, or maybe even teachers who've pulled their kids out because of Common Core and are homeschooling or maybe private schooling?
Yes. In my particular school, not yet, but I do know there's a growing number who are pulling their children out of school after this year. They're not very happy with the way things are going. And honestly, I would like to go there one day myself. If it doesn't get better, because my own child is a product of this, and I don't want him to be.
Well, we thank you so much for taking time to come tell us what it's really like in the classroom. And we're sorry that you are not able to identify yourself, because you may pay for that in your school and you may be fired for how you feel about this. But we really appreciate your courage and thank you for being here.
I appreciate the opportunity. I hate that you can't show my face either. That may change one day, because I believe as parents and as teachers and professionals that we have to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. And if that cost means my job, it may happen.
Wow.